Right, so here we have the Stock's Icon control box, which is our current standard flagship controller. It's used on a wide range of our machines, and it's a very easy to use, very simple control box. We'll just have a quick run through what we have on the screen here in front. So this is what we call the run screen, where we have our forward speed displayed here, which the speed input is from a GPS receiver up on the roof. The green bar here represents minimum maximum forward speed, which will show you where that is in calibration, but here this green status bar wants to run somewhere in the middle, 2/3, not all the way at the top, not all the way down here. We have the button here to turn the fan on, or the disc if it was a Pro Plus, and then the button on this side turns the metering unit on, and then the cross indicates it's out of action. So if the metering unit was up in the air, you would be on green, but then there'd be a cross on it to show that it's not applying seed. On this side here we have the application rate, and the application rate we can increase by a nudge, and then we hit the crosshairs one to return back to the preset 15 kilos. To adjust that, it's just a case of press it, we can change that rate to anything we want it to be, and it's as simple as that. And then we have the home button on the bottom, the scrolling arrows which scroll through the different various screens, and then escape and enter. So anytime we want to come back to this screen, we press the home button. Second screen here shows us our totals of amount used, area used and time, and we also have an empty function here that you can click that, and then you can use the prime button on the side of the machine to empty anything out the bottom of the tank through the calibration hole. And this way here is every time we enter a bag in the hopper. So we had 50 kilos in, we've used 25, we put another 25 kilos in, so we change this to 50 kilos, and then this counts down, so it's another way of keeping record of what's in the tank. And then the next screen here is our main settings screen. So the scales here are the automatic calibration, but I prefer to use the manual, which we'll show in a minute. Here we have the application rate at 15 kilos a hectare, and also very importantly is the minimum maximum forward speed for this particular setup. So when you're doing a roller setup and you want to know if your rollers are right, you could do a calibration, input the settings you want for the machine, and then check that your speed you want to run at is in the middle 2/3 of the minimum maximum forward speed. So we check the units, it's kilos a hectare, nudge size, and then the cal factor. So this cal factor is the kilos per revolution of the metering unit. So we see here that 0.083 is 83 grams per revolution of the machine. So quite often if we're checking up the machine over the phone on technical support, we'll ask for this cal factor number, because we learn a lot about how the machine is set up from that number. On the working width, set the machine here, so we could change this to 8 meters. All the other calculations are done. Max tanks weight, set at 100 kilos from factory. If this was Avadex in a 240 litre tank, you know, we might get 230 kilos of Avadex in. So you might need to change that max tank weight if you're putting a heavy product in. Pre-start is very useful if you're wanting to seed right into the corner of a field, or you're using an extremely heavy draft implement like a subsoiler, and when you drop the machine in the ground you want to start seeding immediately, even though your forward speed might be slow setting off, or you want to make sure there's no misses in a corner. So pre-start setting, you can either have it on, off, or on auto. So you could have it on, and then the pre-start time can be 3 seconds, or you could put 5 seconds on there. And what that means is that for the first 5 seconds that you move, the metering roll will run at your simulated speed, or until your forward speed exceeds the simulated speed. Agitator motor, on or off. You could turn that off for oilseed rape, but definitely have it on for cover crops and grass seed. And then the prime latch or non-latch is the button, the calibration button on the machine. Non-latch is where you press and keep the prime button held during calibration, latch is where you press it once to start it and press it again to stop it. There is a section on here for tramliner, but it's not wired into anything, it doesn't work. We have no machines that offer a tramlining function. The alarms page, the upper level sensor on, low tank quantity. So where we entered that 50 kilos earlier onto the weight into the tank, we could set this alarm to warn us at 10 kilos. Now that isn't the hopper level sensor alarm, that is a countdown alarm that we can set it on. And then we have the fan alarm as well, so that prevents you from turning the metering unit on when the fan's not running. In the gear setting here we have head unit diagnostics, which shows us voltages of inputs used, motor speeds and targets, CAN inputs diagnostics. None of these are usable unless you've been instructed by a technical person at stocks. GPS diagnostics is useful that when you've got your GPS unit plugged in, you can click onto that and it will show you the number of fixed and satellites on there, so that can check if your GPS is working. And factory settings, this is only to be gone into if you're ever instructed to by a member of the technical team. Settings on here are self-explanatory: time, date, backlight, volume, language, and then at the bottom we have simulated speed. So here at the top, that's forward speed signal is GPS, which is how they should all be set up unless it's a specialist operation, and then the simulated speed here. So if you were working at 8k in the field, your simulated speed should be 70% less, 70% of that. So if you're running at 8k in the field, I would probably suggest setting that at 6k. So if you're using pre-start, as soon as you reach 6k, it knocks pre-start out, and then it starts to use the GPS as a speed sensor, and this is where you start simulated speed on or off. So this can be used for a static test in the yard, or if for any reason you can't get a speed reading from the GPS. To calibrate the machine, you can go from the home screen without pressing anything on the home screen. You have the calibration button on the junction box. So you press and hold the calibration button on the junction box and the machine starts counting up. There's no set time for this, you just want to stop when you've got enough product to weigh 200, 300, 400 grams, it doesn't really matter, but just as though you've got enough in there. If it's oilseed rape, you'll hold it for a lot longer than you would do for grass seed. You let go of the button when you've got enough to weigh, the box will stop, and then it's now asking you to enter a weight. So using a set of scales that weighs to 3 decimal places, you weigh what's in your calibration tray and enter the weight in grams, not kilos, it's in grams. So that thinks it's weighed 440, we're going to say we've actually weighed 500 grams. Now the cal factor's changed from 83 grams a revolution to 94 grams a revolution, and importantly we must remember to click OK to save. I would normally repeat that process 2 to 3 times. By the second or third time, the weight displayed on the screen should be within a gram or 5 of what you've actually weighed. So the first time might be out, by the third time you should be absolutely spot on. This cal factor can be recorded for future dates, so if you had a particular seed mix and you knew what the cal factor was and you record what your working width was, then you can input that again manually for a second time round. So when you're ready to go, it's just as simple as turning the fan on, the metering unit on. This has no forward speed, so it's prompting you to use a simulated speed, and then you would drop the machine into work and you will be working.